At 11 weeks post-op, my gait looked completely normal, textbook even. Well, my physical therapist's notes from that same week say my quadriceps strength was still down by 32%. Nobody walking past me on the street would have known. That gap between what a recovery looks like and what it measures is the entire subject of this video. Same disclaimer as always. I'm not a doctor or a PT. I'm a data guy who tore both quad tendons 16 months apart and kept every PT note along the way. This video isn't the injury story. That's the last video if you want it. This one is narrower. What the actual week-by-week numbers looked like during quad tendon rehab, and the 2 or 3 things about the timeline that surprised me enough to still be talking about them. One quick anchor before the numbers. This is the second tear, the right knee. It's also the recovery where a DVT showed up partway through, but that gets its own video coming up next. Here I'm staying on gait, strength, and clearance for running. If you're pre-surgery or early post-op with this injury, this is the video I wish someone had shown me. Here's the mental model most people bring into this injury. Surgery happens, then there's a recovery period, then it gets steadily better week by week until one day you're done. That's not what the data look like. Not even close. What actually happens is 3 different systems recovering on 3 different timelines, and they are not in sync with each other. Range of motion, quad strength, gait quality. Each one has its own curve, and the gap between them is where the surprises live. My physical therapy notes show my gait is normal by week 9. No assistive device, meaning no cane, no crutches, walking fully under my own power, and a reciprocal gait on stairs, which means normal foot-over-foot steps going up and down instead of leading with one leg and dragging the other behind it. By any visual standard, I looked recovered. That's great, right? Well, here's the number sitting right next to that, quote, normal gait note. A 32% quad strength deficit compared to my other leg. A month later, it was still down by 16%. That's the deficit cut in half, but still far from being caught up. My surgeon described this injury as needing a 12 to 18 month recovery, not a 6-month one. I was pretty strong, for me anyway, at the time of injury, so getting back to baseline was always going to be a long, slow climb. But here's the trap. Gait is the visible signal. To family, to coworkers, and even to yourself as you catch your reflection in a window, a smooth, even gait is what everyone reads as, quote, back to normal. Strength is invisible, and it lags behind by months, not weeks. If you're using how you look walking as your recovery gauge, you're measuring the wrong thing. It'll tell you you're fine long before you actually are. This is the one I'd tell anyone pre-surgery to write down. My protocol didn't clear me to run again based on how many weeks had passed or how good the knee felt. Clearance required 2 objective numbers, quad strength within roughly 2/3 of the uninjured side, and a walking pattern that held up symmetrically under load. That threshold matters because the knee feels fine is a bad proxy. Extension range of motion can be full, gait can look clean, and the quad can still be significantly weaker on the operated side. I had full active extension and near normal gait weeks before I had anywhere close to symmetric strength. If your PT is using a percentage-based strength test to decide your return to running rather than a calendar date, that's not being overly cautious. That's the actual data-driven approach, and it's worth asking for if your protocol isn't already built that way. One more number that surprised me and honestly frustrated me. Extensor lag during straight leg raise. This is the gap between how far you can actively lift a straight leg versus how far it extends passively. Mine sat in the 3 to 5 degree range for weeks, and it didn't close in a straight line. Some visits it was better. Some visits it read slightly worse, with no obvious cause. Now, one thing worth flagging for anyone who thinks in data the way I do, some of that week-to-week noise isn't your leg changing, it's simply the measurement. Extensor lag gets read with a goniometer, and that's just a clinician eyeballing a protractor that's held up against your joint. A degree or 2 of swing between visits is well within measurement error, not a real change in your tendon. Anyway, the frustrating part wasn't even that number. It was watching it happen. Weeks into rehab, Firing that quad as hard as I could and genuinely feeling strong doing it, the legs still wouldn't fully straighten on the raise. That gap between how strong the quad felt in the moment and what it could actually deliver at the top of the motion is what stuck with me more than the number on the chart. If you're tracking your own numbers week to week and you see a flat week or a slightly worse week, that's normal for this injury. It's not a sign the rehab has stalled, and it may not even be a real regression. It may just be who read the goniometer that day. Remember, this is a long, slow process. Tendon and neuromuscular recovery genuinely plateaus and dips locally while still trending in the right direction over the full arc. If I were rebuilding this from week 1, here's what I'd log every PT visit and not just remember vaguely. Quad strength deficit percentage, if your PT tests it, extensor lag in degrees during straight leg raise, flexion range of motion in degrees, and a plain yes or no on gait. Are you still using an assistive device like a cane, crutches, or brace, or are you walking unassisted? And is the gait symmetric side to side or not? 4 numbers logged consistently tell you far more than how does it feel today. Feel is noisy. These 4 move slowly but honestly. The free resting heart rate tracker I built pairs well with this. It's built for exactly this kind of week-over-week number tracking instead of relying on how you feel on a given day. The link's in the description and pinned comment. If you found this useful or even a little interesting, please subscribe to my channel. The next video coming up stays in this same recovery. I'll talk about the DVT that showed up partway through and what my resting heart rate did and didn't catch. As a reminder, this is not medical advice. This reflects my personal recovery experience and physical therapy documentation only. Every recovery timeline and protocol is individual. Always consult your physician or physical therapist before modifying your rehab protocol or using strength and range of motion thresholds to make return to activity decisions.